Hey fellow engineers, it's me Mario. Today's video is a bit different from the many ones I've done recently. Today I'm going to talk about a playtest that I was able to do with the designers of the game. It's about an expansion to Barrage. Barrage is easily among my favorite games ever. I played it more than 100 times, and I actually don't know why I didn't put any strategy video on my YouTube channel, but that's going to come for sure. But yeah, today I just want to talk a bit about my impressions on the new expansion. And since this is a strategy channel, I'm also going to throw in a few considerations about what changes are there in the balance of the game, what the designers choose to do to change a bit the evaluations of the already existing assets that are in the game. And I'm just going to give you my impressions overall. So this is the Nile module. It's about, well, um, the Nile River. Basically, the Nile is one river that flows from headstream B down towards to the center of the map and then to the left. The map, as you can see, it's pretty similar to the base one. There are four basins in the mountains, three basins in the hills, and three basins in the plains. But that's just about the only thing that it has in common with the base map. The conduits are all different. As you can see, the pipes are very different values. Like there's a 5 and a 4 from a hill basin, and a 2 and a 3 from a mountain basin. So it's all pretty messed up, and you have to, find different ways to play this game already starting from the conduits. But then there's the Nile, of course. The Nile River is very different. It works very differently from your usual rivers. Like, yeah, the water still flows through it, but there are a few rules that do change. So, first of all, there are going to be two more drops added to the river each and every round. Why is it so? Because from your dams placed on either side of the Nile River, so here or here, and down here, you can siphon one drop of water using the action that is depicted on the board. There are two spots. One is free, one does cost 3 coins. It's your usual red space that it's always there in Barrage. And by using that and siphoning one drop of water, you can take one tile. We're going to take a look at those tiles um, quickly enough. But basically, those tiles will unlock points, will give you points for a majority check at the end of each round that can give you points or actually can leave you with less points. And each tile has depicted a fast action that you can take whenever you want. You can take only one per turn, but it looks and feels a bit like playing with Tommaso Battista, which is one of the operatives in the game that lets you take two action in a row. So it's pretty darn strong if you can pull it off. So the balance of the game does change quite a bit. So on a base level, again, you have two more spaces, so it seems like the competition is less fierce, but it's actually the opposite, the other way around. I'm going to analyze that real quick. Um, you have more choices now when you start with the dam, which is already one of the strongest start that you can take in Barrage. If you start with a dam on one side of the Nile, which is a good idea in general, let's just say that, you can also use a fast drop on the first round and siphon it straight up here. You're competing a bit with guys producing, but normally guys that go for an early production use the neutral dams, so you're not actually competing that much with them. Oh, you cannot siphon drops from neutral dams, only from your dams. So it's like a third big strategy right at the beginning of the game. Normally, you go for a bit of a building strat, or you go for production. And now you can also go for irrigation. That's the name of the new mechanic. And that's already pretty interesting, in my opinion. And it's pretty darn strong. I mean, as we're going to see, these one time bonuses are all pretty good. So that's one layer that is added to the game. A second layer that is added to the game is that now going for high dams is better. Like the rewards from the irrigation tiles do scale up as you go up on the mountain. So the ones in the mountains are pretty stronger than the ones down here in the hills. So that's like a big push to put up a dam over here. Also, the fact that there are like many level 3 conduits over here makes it so that it's not as it used to be in Barrage, that placing a dam in the mountains meant forgetting about it for a bit, because the conduits were so expensive that you had to wait for a while before you would be able to produce for them. Now that's not the case anymore. You can use them to siphon water to irrigation tiles, and then you can also use the conduits to produce. And a third thing that makes the game more competitive, like more mean, I would say, take a look at the slots for powerhouses. There used to be more slots overall. Like over here, there used to be 3 slots. Over here, 3 slots too. And down here, there used to be 4 slots. And now there are like a full 3 slots less for powerhouses. I think they did so. I mean, I'm not sure. I spoke with the designers a bit, but I didn't have the time to go into the fine details, and I didn't even want to because I want to discover things by myself once I will be able to play the game. But basically, powerhouses were less important. If you were playing Barrage a lot, if you have been playing Barrage a lot, you know that dams are the name of the game. You have to place down dams, occupy spaces, and only after you can go for powerhouses, because there's no bonus to place a powerhouses before anybody else, while placing a dam before anybody else means basically reserving a basin, which is pretty strong. So here, placing down powerhouses at the start can also be good. So starting with the production strategy, um, is not as bad as it seemed in the base game or with the Lee Water expansion. Like you can still do it without the Nile module, of course. But let's say that out of a 4-player game, normally there was one guy only that was allowed to go for production. If 2 went for production, the other 2 players had a big advantage. But yeah, I'm going to talk about it in a strategy video later on. Today I'm just going to focus on the Nile. So I just spoke a bit about the map itself, but let's just take a closer look at the different irrigation tile that you can get. Let me switch to this picture, and here we can see some of those tiles. The rewards are pretty good, I would say. Here you can get double excavator, which is very strong at the start of the game, or 3 coins, or one wheel rotation, wind spin. Over here you can plus 4 energy, or 4 coins, or 2 instant drops, or even two wheelings, which is pretty good. But I want to focus a bit more on this action. This one will let you build anything in the plains, provided you have the max and the correct tile, but you don't need engineers. So it's a pretty darn good way to build 4 times in a round, or even 3 times without spending 3 engineers, which is a steep cost, especially later on. They do scale up. I don't have a picture of the mountains, unfortunately. But basically, on the mountains, you can get instead 2 grays instead of the 2 browns down here. You can get 5 coins. You can get a structure in the mountains, which is, of course, way better. So, and also over here, there's 1+0 production. Over here, 1+1 production. And in the mountains, there's a +2 production that you can take immediately whenever you want. If you have been playing a bit with Batista, you should know how strong it is to be able to produce whenever you want. Like you can take a contract and then produce. You can get a drop and then produce. It's just pretty strong. So those actions are very good. You can also see that there is a small number in the bottom right corner. It's either a 2 or a 1. This is because at the end of each round, there's a majority check. Each player will count the total number of their irrigation tiles. Say you have two twos and one one, you have five, etc., etc. The guy who got the most tiles will get 3 victory points plus all the victory points that are showing up on the board. And these are like little stacks. Depending on the number of players, there are going to be more or less irrigation tiles. But when you take all of them, the stacks are at most 2 tiles, so they are not high stacks. They are going to uncover 1 VP. So at the end of the round, you can actually take something like 6 or 9 or even more VPs by the end of the game. And it's pretty darn strong. There's a bit of a downside in that if you win this majority, you're also going to get a token that says -1 in the first like 2 rounds, I think, and -2 in the other 2 rounds. You're not going to get anything after a fifth one, of course, because the game is going to end. So that is done to limit a runaway leader thing on the irrigation scoring, which is pretty relevant. Also, the second player will get instead half of the points shows up on the irrigation tiles, which is pretty good. And the third and the eventually fourth player will actually get -2 points. And let me say that that's pretty harsh because in this game, well, I was playing it for the first time, and Simone Luciani basically smoked both me and Tommaso. He got like 60 points more than us by the end of the game, which is probably one of the worst defeat of my life in Barrage. I would say that I'm a pretty decent player of Barrage, so um, definitely Simone surprised me by defeating us by a lot. I did enjoy it though, and I basically took -10 points in the whole game because I wasn't able to get even second on irrigation tiles. It was a new mechanic and all, but yeah, I still think that I played a bit bad. Being second is pretty good because you can get points by not investing much on the Nile tiles. And also, you're not going to get the -1 and -2 because you win the majority. But of course, you take less points. So that's pretty much it for the expansion. I want to show you two small things. There are a few things that are added to the game on top of the irrigation tiles that do combo with them. If you take a look in the top right corner, it should be visible, or maybe there's my face in the middle of it, so I have to. Oh no, it doesn't show up. That's unfortunate. Basically, there is a new private building that will. It's pretty costly, and people that have been following me on BGG and on other channels know that I don't love private buildings in Barrage. I don't think they're as strong as they should be. But alas, it's not that costly, and it's going to let you sink 2 drops into the irrigation tiles at one time, provided that you get the water in your dams adjacent to the Nile. It's a pretty good action because it's on top of the 2 printed actions on the board. So you can both take 2 tiles at one time and you get an extra chance to take some irrigation tiles. So it wasn't bad. I'm not sure it's good, but we're going to see. There are also at least 2 more works that are available on the offer. I think I saw one in the B pile and one in the C pile. I have no idea if there's one in the A pile. And they're pretty good. I mean, the C1 is, of course, just points, while the B1 is both points and a bit of economy, as it's always the case with works. I think they're pretty decent, both of them. And then there are 3 new contracts that also do stuff with the irrigation tile. But I mean, I'm not going too much into detail on that because I think this video is already pretty long and I want to wrap it up. The biggest thing that I did like about this expansion is how it changes how you evaluate the assets of the game. Simone had a crazy game using base one, which is the tile that is going to let you build a base, a dam, and it's going to fill all the empty dams that you've got. That tile is, let's say, it's not good in the base game. It's not really that good, but it was amazing here because he was able to use it to get a lot of irrigation tiles without investing much of them and with advancing his board. So that's already interesting. And Tommaso took elevation to the tile that is going to fill your dam when you build an elevation over it. And that was also pretty good because you're going to get a lot of drops you can use for the irrigation. So a few assets did change quite a bit. Also, the action themselves do change quite a bit. The fast drop and the slow drops actions are now fiercely contested, I would say, because you really want to get a lot of water if you want to go for irrigation. I know that there are two more drops on the headstream of the Nile, but still, you're really hungry for water now. That didn't used to be the case in Barrage, I would say. I mean, there were good actions, the water management actions, but they were not as good as they are with the Nile. Let's just say that. And yeah, another small consideration. I saw that it's a bit less useful to get max by spending coins in the workshop. That's because you can get them from irrigation tile, but maybe that was just the case in the game that I played. I mean, I'm going to need to play test this game a lot in the future. I hope that I will be able to get it as soon as it comes up. And yeah, I'm very happy with it. Um, I don't know when the expansion is going to come out. You should check the BGG page of Barrage to be in touch with the designers and know more about um, the time this expansion is going to come out. I'm actually not an insider, so I don't know anything about that, but I did enjoy my game against the two designers a lot. I don't know if you're already following this channel. If you're not, you might want to. There's a lot of strategy content here, and I'm willing to put out more in the next few days. I'm willing to start a new series sooner rather than later, which is about helping people to improve in their game in general. Euro players, that's my focus. So, if you're not following the channel, you might want to. If you're not, goodbye, guys. Mario's out.